Welcome to Angel's Table. My beautiful co-host is back with a lovely new do. She's rocking it, love it. And joining us again are Kathy Sparkman and Rachel Pleasant, two of my favorites. Okay, so today we are going to discuss, which I've discovered is a complicated conversation about life path journey. Okay, so let me take a step back. So what I want to know from all of you today is, do you feel like early on in your life, and your earliest memories, do you feel like there was something that you were passionate about, something you were destined to do, something that you were just thought, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do with my life, or this is where I want to go with my future? And then, because life is life, we are human, we have human parents, human friends, did life take you in a different direction than the one that you might have seen for yourself when you were 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever that might have been? First of all, you understand the question. Second of all,
yes, and yes. I do understand the question. I can say from my personal experience, I wanted to be an astronaut. That was my plan. That was all I wanted to do.
Wow.
I was always into
that coming, Denise.
I was always into the arts, and so when I thought about going to school to be an engineer, because I thought, okay, if I'm an aerospace engineer or aeronautics engineer, that'll increase the likelihood that I can get into the space program. Wow. Well, of course, at my age, there were no astronauts that looked like me, and
that's very true.
And then when it was time for me I had 2 potential paths, and I didn't take either one. When it was time for me to apply to colleges, I talked to my uncle, who was an engineer, and he talked to me about how often engineers were laid off and how often they had to move. He was he did a lot of like nuclear kind of stuff, and he talked about how, and then my oldest son's father was an engineer, and he was always having to move, because the project would end and then they'd move on to the next project. So he would work for this company, then he'd be in California working for another company and all those kinds of things. And then I also had my portfolio all ready to go to art school. But I had other artists in my family that I thought were way better artists than I was, and they couldn't put food on their table. So I decided to do something that was a little more stable, but I ended up changing my major 6 times.
Did you really? Which is really common. So you didn't start out going in?
No, I didn't. I didn't ever send in my portfolio. Oh no. Okay. And then I went into pre-med, and I hated inorganic chemistry, which I later loved when I took it again. But I dropped the class. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a dance major for a while, and danced with a couple of dance companies.
I know. Wow.
And then
I'm so impressed.
And then I was in that school of art, gotten accepted in the School of Architecture and Design at U of M, and then I changed it. Then I was pre-law, and I did this and I did that, and I kept taking psychology as electives. And then the guy I was married to at the time said, if you just take, like 6 more hours, you can graduate with a major in psychology and a minor in English and political science. Well, that's what I did, because every time I had an elective, I take psychology and I take English, because I like to write and I like to read.
That's cool. So do you ever regret that you did not go into engineering? Well,
I regret that I didn't have the confidence in myself to go ahead and pursue a career in, because even astronomy was my major for a while when I was at U of M. I've always just been fascinated with the space program and anything related to it and the planets and all that.
Right.
And so it's an avocation now. It's not.
Right. But you did what I teach my kids. You tried everything. Mm-hmm. You only can do that when you're young. Mm-hmm. You can try things throughout your life, but as you get older, there's less time to be able to do them. You know what I mean? To enjoy them.
Well, 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to finally do what I wanted to do,
Well,
and so I took my first acting class, and I've been thrilled ever since. No, I didn't.
No, she took a right turn and just went with it.
But I just went for the arts. Because I always took classes. I took shoemaking. I could make shoes.
Wow.
Oh
So,
yeah,
no,
I
you
took master
tried
goldsmith.
everything, but that's so
I
cool.
took the goldsmithing classes and stone setting classes and all kinds of things, and learned how to do those things. I had a business, a jewelry business, doing fine jewelry. And
Is there anywhere in your early years, do you ever recall thinking that you would like to do acting? Was that ever
I know I always admired the profession, but never thought it was something that I would do.
something?
And at some point, when things changed suddenly, I said, you know what, I'm going to take a class. And I took that first class, and when I went online, the class was starting in 2 weeks. I was like, well, my goodness, the
Sometimes
timing
you
and
didn't have
everything.
time to think about it.
No, I signed up for the class and I
Yeah.
went and loved it.
Right, not unlike this show, by the way, where it was, we thought about it one day and the next day we were filming, okay, maybe a week later, but it was really that fast. It was like, you want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. It was like, what? Oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this, okay.
But for
So
things
anyway,
that scare you, that's not always a bad
it's
thing.
not.
Because
No,
if you
it's
go
not.
with your gut and just go with that, then you don't know where you're going to end up. But when you think about things that scare you, chances are you're not going to do them.
And talk
Right,
yourself
so-
out.
You can way talk, which is why our earlier episodes are a little, obviously very uncomfortable. Partially because I had thought it through and I wanted to start before I talked myself out of it because I thought, okay, this is a great idea. I think we can have a lot of fun with this. But I really was afraid that I was going to talk myself out of it. So I realized, okay, let's just do it. And then that first day of filming, it was like, okay, go. And it's like, no. So,
But you're really good at it.
thank you.
I mean, you make
So it's an
people,
example, yeah.
comfortable and feel like they.
Right.
Oh, good. Well, good. That's
Totally.
yeah. As long as everybody else is doing great, I'm good with that, regardless of how I look. Okay, so beautiful, Rachel.
Yes.
Pleasure. Tell us about where you started.
We have very different backgrounds in the sense that, that 5 to 10 year age range was not too long ago for me, but
Right.
I also knew what I wanted to do, and that never changed. That's how we differ. So in some ways that it's not like I always played it safe, because within what I wanted to do, I always took risks. But when I was younger, my dad owned a business, and he was very open. There was I was a child, I was, seen and not heard. That was not, not a part of my upbringing. So at a very young age, he would ask questions like, what should we do for this? Does this sound nice to you? Does this image for the storefront look good? And by 12 years old, I was helping my uncle pick out his logo for his new business. I think I was 12. And I always wanted to do advertising and marketing. That didn't change. So yeah, when I got to college, I started doing competitions and taking electives that were not necessarily within my major, but things that I was passionate about. That's how I ended up with a history minor. But I tell people that, your major or what your career is something that you wanted to do, but your minor and your passions are something that you need to do. And I was still am very into history, and to do my job, I need to know people, and you don't know people until you know where they've been. So kind of check that mark off. And then there was another aspect that I had an upbringing with a lot of nonprofit work and volunteering. My mom and my sister are both in it. I do a ton on the side. So in my personal and professional life, I just stayed on the same path for the most part. And we'll see where that takes me. Still have a while to go till I get from A to Z, but I'm very happy with the way it's going now.
Yeah, so you do feel like you're on the course that you were meant to be on.
Right, yes, which I'm very lucky, because I know a lot of people my age don't know what they want to do yet, or they change, which is great, which is fine. I would never, because I knew what I wanted to do, would never judge somebody else for not knowing, because all three of you said when you're young you're supposed to take risks, and I genuinely believe that in every shape, way, and form.
I just want to modify that. I think that no matter what age you are, if it's something that you really want to do,
that's a good point. That's a
you
great
should take that risk.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great point.
Because otherwise, why get to 89 and say, I wish I had.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Nothing is worse than saying what if.
Yeah.
Right. First, I want to say, I am impressed with you on so many levels. Just, I mean, obviously, I love Rachel. And I brought Rachel in because I really do like her as a young professional, as a young person who comes to our house all the time, and she makes me laugh, and she laughs at me, and she likes me, and it's like, I love you because you like me, and as Parker always says, you're old. And Rachel doesn't say that. So that was one of the first reasons why I brought Rachel in. But now I'm finding that she's just like so much smarter than me. And when we're talking about something, okay, no, she's not. She's really not. But when we talk about something, you just say, okay, but do it, maybe think about it this way or that way. So she's actually helping me with the show, which is actually making me really feel great because it's like, that means she's supportive and thinks it's a good plan, which I know, like you do too. So that's really fantastic. But I don't think I've ever known anybody, even, who so convincingly knows what they want to do and immediately are so good at it. Like, I don't even question that you don't know what you're doing.
I hide it really well.
And,
I should go
and they're
back
so
into-
young. Sometimes it's like, she's really that young and she's so good at this. It's just amazing. She starts saying, okay, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, great, fantastic. And then I'm looking at my notes going, I need to sit back down with her because I'm having trouble, blah, 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 blah. Like, so I need her to sit back down with me. So I think it's fantastic.
It goes back on that path, because I've wanted to do what I do for so long. I've had a lot of years of prep. So even before I went to college for it, even before I started consulting and so on, it's been a long line to, get to this point even. And to have opportunities like this and meet, people like this has been a great experience, but it's all part of the path. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen tomorrow, none of us do, but if you take that moment in stride and slightly live out of your comfort zone for a little bit, you don't know what's going to
Well,
happen.
the other part of it for me too is
Yeah.
like with advertising, I never even considered that as an option
That
because
wasn't one of the
the only thing that I knew about advertising was on Bewitched. And you had Darren, who was an ad, he worked for an ad agency, and he was always miserable because they kept changing everything, and it was on him, when he'd do this thing, he thought it was really great, and everybody else thought it was great, and it's like, nah.
Well, and then she was the one who ultimately gave the great campaign, which I always thought was hilarious. I was like, wow, he wasn't really very good at his job. He just had a really great wife.
Yeah, and so that was all I knew about advertising.
I don't believe you. It had, just in general, it has gotten some bad press, just because of, I love that show, but it shows the light, it shows the negative aspects of the job, and every industry does, but this one, because it's so interesting, and because there's an academic area to it as well as a creative portion, people are very interested in it and want to watch it or see it,
and it affects us across the board. Everything that we do, there's advertising involved.
And when people talk about their path, that has a lot to do with what they see in advertising. I mean, even schools now are advertising, and that's how people pick up the phone and start. Or
everything is about
everything.
advertising and marketing, and oh my gosh, it's
The
the
choices we
craziest
make.
thing. I actually want to come back to that, but I want to come to Kathy. We don't want to leave her out over here. And Kathy being quiet for a long time is a very I do, sorry. Pulling it out. Okay, so
My path?
yes, and
I
go
wish I
back,
could have
go
had a path
back.
as serious as you. I mean,
Well,
that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't. So, go back to where?
go back. Just because I know your history, go back to like middle school, elementary school.
Oh, well.
And what do you recall thinking the...
Okay, so playing in the yard, wanting to be the nurse, because back in the day we could play Cowboys and Indians and, G.I. Joe and the nurses and things like that. And I was, the oldest of 7, so I kind of helped mom with all the kids. And, so yes, I thought, being a nurse. So then I realized, you have to give shots. Yeah, not happening. I don't like shots, I'm not doing it on anybody else. So change that field. And so I thought, there was this woman that came to our house and decorated my mom's living room. And I really thought she was cool. And I wanted to be interior decorator. I thought, that's it, I'm going to be that. And I went to school for that. I really did. And so and I was paying for everything myself. And my second year I was at Central and came home at Christmas, and I couldn't go back. My dad was very sick and I had to stay home. So my brother and I were now home. Now the others are all still in school. My brother and I are now home with no jobs. January, February, March. There are no jobs. January, February, March. Anyhow, so we kind of joked around a lot about that stuff and had a lot of fun with my mom at that point. But our careers just kind of went to, sales. We all can talk, and we do it well. As Angel points out many times.
They do, and when they're together,
And,
you may
and
as
we
well
like
just
people.
forget talking.
But we like people, and it is. We really, truly like
Very
people, and our
social.
parents taught us that. It's all about the people. So we go out there and we talk to people. And so I was in sales at a very young age. And, whether it be in a store, I worked in several different stores in marketing. I worked in the basement of a store one time, and in the where they purchased the clothes and purchasing. Okay, so and I worked in all different areas of it, and I really liked it. It was fun, but it wasn't an area I wanted to pursue. But I always knew I wanted to be a mom. Bottom line is I always knew I was going to be a mom. I wanted to stay home too. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So ended up getting married to my high school sweetheart, and couldn't find a sales job because I didn't have enough experience in sales, and I didn't have my degree. So it wasn't like hardcore knocking on doors type sales. It was retail sales, in stores type things like that. And so I couldn't find a job back in the day. And so it took a while. I finally ended up with a job, but it wasn't sales. But it wasn't a company that had a sales department. From there, got into their sales department 6 months down the road. The guy didn't want to hire me. I made it to sales. Inside, I was assistant, then I was inside sales, then I moved on to outside sales. So sales became my thing. Down the road, became a mom. 3 years after that, decided my husband and I were at a point where I could stay home. So I did. My kids go back to school, I'm back in sales. I'm like, I can't sit at home and do nothing. I'm still in the community service area because I love that. I love helping people and doing things like that. But I also knew that sales was my thing, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So
Kathy
kind
has
of something
endless
there.
energy for helping people.
Yeah, I know, it's really fun.
You really do.
It's pretty
I mean,
fun.
and
It's fun.
sometimes, there are times when things happen. Like for instance, someone's mom dies, and you have to. Somebody coordinates to help. Maybe bring food and
Somebody
get your
has
friends to. Yeah. But Kathy never is not a participant in that. If not, she's always the person starting that. And so, and it's not just with them, not just in funerals, but with anything where there's any situation where someone needs something, Kathy's always there. And sometimes I think, I know she's working a full-time job, and I know she's been doing blah, 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 and yet she still has the energy to do this other thing for this person and do it with great gusto. I mean, not just,
with great love.
With great love.
To it. I do.
Yes.
And I
And
was
it
taught
always,
that, though.
it's fascinating.
But
Yeah.
my mom and dad taught us that growing up.
Right.
They were devout Catholics, they were believers in the Lord, and they always said, you show up at the funerals, you show up at the birthday parties, you show up at the weddings, and you are there for people to help them because, that's in turn, when life had hit the road, the rough roads for our family, people were there to help us. And we saw that. And I'll tell you what, every one of my sisters and brothers would be out there to help somebody in a heartbeat.
Oh
And
my
they
gosh,
do.
well that is really kind of an interesting thing. I didn't even just put that together, that you said that when on the playground you were thinking about being a nurse. And in many ways you are a caregiver. You're the person who's one of the first people there to
I want to help.
console or to help or to give guidance.
Take care of people. And
Yeah,
everybody
so there's
needs a little help.
different forms of nursing. So really,
That's
so
true.
that's kind of an interesting thing.
Your happy legacy is helping.
It's-
So that's what
yeah.
you were, or that's what you do, but that's what you were supposed to do. And
Right.
that's clear from your upbringing.
Yeah.
Like you were on that path before you knew you were on that path.
Right.
So
And I think the Lord has a
that's
handle
great.
on all of it, though. I think He guides you throughout life, even when things go bad or don't go the way you think they should go. He has another plan, and your plan is to just continue on with whatever it is you're doing, and it will set you free. I mean, as you move on, it just happens. It's like you've gone through so many different areas in your college days. It's like, wow, that's so great that you were able to do that. So as you've gotten older, you can see, oh, I like this acting thing. That was fun. Maybe I'm gonna do it again. You know, and you're doing it. I mean, you know, and you always do. You know, so that's
Maybe
so
you'll be-
cool.
Maybe you'll be an
That's
astronaut
so-
in a movie one day.
That would be pretty.
That would be
That would be
cool.
fun.
That would be really cool.
I would see that movie.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Or maybe I just
So-
have to write one.
You
Right.
both might
So-
have to, because she is a writer too. So here's another, I mean, that kind of brought me to this. This is interesting. So, do you feel like there is a path, or that you are put into this world with a journey, and that no matter what it is, and maybe there are some detours here and there, but you feel like, based on your belief system, God or the universe or some other a higher power of some sort, do you come into this world and this is the set of circumstances that you have to live through? Do you, like if you're someone who was verbally abused all of your life or physically abused, was that part of what was necessary for you to get to a different place in your life? And is that...
I don't think there's a clear set out path. You know, me personally, I think there's opportunities.
Right.
So there's holes that need to be filled, and that relates back into your behavior, your attitude, and what you ultimately end up doing. So, you know, if you're given an opportunity, you could do A, B, C, or D. Which one are you going to choose? And that brings you to the next step. So maybe not necessarily, you know, there's an end game for everybody that's
Well, I don't believe there's an
very
end game
specific.
for me.
Yeah.
I think it's just, like you
open.
said, those
Yeah.
open goals,
Yeah.
whichever's gonna make you feel good
Mhm.
and keep you happy, because you need to be happy with yourself or you're not gonna enjoy what you're doing. So you have to find the happiness. You have to wake up in that morning and say, well, you know, as they say, you know, how's your day? And I heard down south they'll say, well, my feet are on the right side of the soil. I'm like, oh, wasn't that interesting? I never really thought of it that way.
I'm vertical. I'm good.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so I mean, I get to see the sunset, I get to see the sunrise, I get to see my kids and talk to them, I get to talk to my husband, I get to see my best friends, you know, and you know, and talk to them. And what's gonna make you happy?
Some people don't pick those
They
opportunities
don't.
to be happy though. You know, if you look at people who are in a bad spot or miserable or having a hard time, they haven't chosen the right path necessarily for them, because I don't think anybody wants theirself to be miserable. So that's why we have people like you.
Some people don't know how to think.
Yeah,
Some people don't know how
Yeah,
to
to
get out.
choose
And
or
then
how to be
it's-
happy. So
Well, that's an interesting point that you said, that they don't know how to get out of it. And I sort of think that when you're stuck in a situation, like I, you know, see people post online and they keep talking about the same situation that keeps happening to them, that, you know, people keep treating them this way, and they keep treating them and keep treating them this way. And I just sometimes think, I know for me that when I started changing my perspective about things, that those kind of situations started to fall away. That just by, it was like, okay, so how can I make this different? Just by even internally reacting to it differently, started to change some of those
And
things.
see, I believe that you choose the way that you're going to respond to
Yeah.
something. You have to respond.
You
And
do.
even not doing anything is a response.
Right.
But to choose how you're going to respond to something, and you know, it's like what everybody says: when somebody shows you who they are, believe it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, a lot of the conflict, repeated conflict, will be when somebody has shown you who they are, and you still don't believe it, and you keep wanting them to be something that
that's a great point.
you know, and you cannot. You have to let people be who they are.
Yes.
Right.
And you can accept them that way, but you don't have to accept them as a part of your daily life.
Right.
And whatever they're doing, you can decide. You know, I used to call them psychic vampires. And you know, suck all the good out of, you know, whatever's happening with you, and you just have to cut those people
I
off.
know a few of them. Yeah.
Well, you
Well,
know,
that's a good point.
growing up in life, people, you know, things go bad. Let's face it. You know, our past don't always take the way we want it to go, and things happen in our lives that aren't very, very happy all the time. And so I try to find the humor, and that's what we've always done in my family. We try to find the humor. And my husband one day, when I was dating him, he said to me, "Why is that funny? Why do you guys keep making fun of that situation?" You know, it was something going on in the family, and I said, "What were we supposed to do? We're supposed to walk around and cry about it all day long? I mean, nobody's gonna ever want to talk to us. That would work. Oh my gosh, that would be horrible. So, you find the humor in life.
Yeah.
And yes, there are serious things that happen, and you take those serious things and you take them home and you discuss them with your family and your friends. But you can't take them into the big world because the big world doesn't get it. Because
Right.
everybody has problems.
And sometimes I think with the faith thing, for me, once I found that acting was really, really what I was supposed to do, it seems like every time I try to veer off into something else that'll be like a rescue job kind of thing, it just doesn't work out. And so
But it brings you back to
it
it.
brings me back, and it's like, okay, now I have to, it means that it's been a huge change in my circumstances
Yeah.
and everything, going from driving a Mercedes to a car that may or may not start trying to turn people, but
Yeah, those kind of
but
things.
it's like I'm not as stressful, quote, and I don't really feel stressed about it. I have some concern as to how things are going to work, but it just doesn't have the same effect on me because I really feel like I'm doing what I need to do. And one of the things that I always pray for clarity. Because sometimes I think that this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is not working out, and I'm like, okay, am I getting the wrong message or something? So I always pray for a clear message.
I do that too, that if I'm doing something and I'll say, okay, somehow this doesn't feel like it's working or fitting, if it's not, change something for me. And I always say God, because I want God to answer me and not someone else. And I'll say, please show me or guide me. Open a door, close a door,
Right.
whatever it is, and make it so that I understand that. Because there have been things that, sometimes it's like, okay, well, that's what I want to do, but that is not working out. And I do feel like for me, that when I started doing that, things started opening up and happening that was like, well, wow, that's really fantastic. I'll make this. I would not have seen, me doing this. It is. It's really good. We're having a lot of fun with that. But I remember, for years, I would say, I really want to be in a talk show. I want to comment on what they're saying. I would really like to be having a conversation about this. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm never going to be on a talk show. And then other things started happening, and somebody said, you should do a talk show. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, why don't we? So, I know
I have to
And
say,
not to
it's
see
really
people.
fun to watch Angel be so professional in doing this. It's so cool. It's really cool.
because normally I'm not professional.
Oh, no, you are. You're so great with your
But to also see you.
No, I know I
But
wasn't, yeah.
it's such a business
Yeah.
thing. This is such a business thing. And she's doing it.
Because I'm mostly just having
She's
fun
doing
all
it.
the time.
But also to see how you bring people on that can talk about things and talk about things in a respectful way without being mean or nasty to one another. And
That is,
you can still be funny,
yeah.
Well,
Well,
and
it was
joke
a
and
conversation.
everything. Yeah, but I mean, not in a mean-spirited way.
Right.
And to disagree, you can even disagree, but it's still, you bring that softness and that kindness to it. And it makes a big
You
difference.
do.
Thank you. I try. I mean, that's what
A
I
second.
That's what I want in life, is for people to understand you can have these conversations where you very hugely disagree
Right.
and still have a
Be
a
civil to
logical
one another.
conversation, an intelligent conversation, and there's just no reason to yell at each other and to tear each other apart. That I just don't think is necessary. And I think when you do that, you don't really resolve anything.
You don't hear one another.
And
No, we certainly don't.
okay, I know we're running long, so I'm going to have to. I know this is such a good conversation, and I don't want to stop it, but I guess we have to. But the one thing I do want to say before we close is the interesting thing is I try really hard when I'm putting the tables together to get a cross section of people. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I get people who are going to join us who don't show up, or it's been complicated. So I know that sometimes if it seems like I put people together all have the same ideas, I really don't know what people's thoughts are, and I'll say, if you have an opinion about this, I'd like to know, and I'll go and I'm doing by race or religion or sex or whatever, thinking, okay, I get a couple male. I mean, I don't have any males in this conversation, but I tried. I couldn't get any men to join the conversation. So I really do try. So however the table ends up, and it's not because I made it that conversation.
Instead of-
And I always say things happen the way they're meant to happen, so
Right.
every conversation is what it was. Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank
I've
you.
enjoyed this. I really, truly would like to continue this
It's
conversation.
enjoyable, ladies.
And thank you again for joining us.